Today, I want to talk about the sutras. And, the sutras are the main philosophy of what we practice, what we teach, etc. Sutra 1, Book 1. So there are four padas or four portions to the books of the sutras. First pada, Book 1, is this portion on contemplation. What does that mean, right? Contemplation. So this really is about introducing concepts that we then get to use in our lives, right? Yoga is not a hobby. It's not something, I mean, maybe it starts that way, but once it really gets in you, it's not something that you can turn on and off, show up for class on Thursday night and you're done, 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 right? This really is about living it. And this idea of contemplation, this first book really does introduce all of these concepts of the practice, the eight limbs, the idea of thought, word, and action, the idea of karma, of action and consequence, or action and reaction. Um, yeah, it's really beautiful. So the first sutra, Atta Yoga Anushasanam, right? Now the exposition of yoga is being made. I love this so much because I love this idea of being made. It's so present and it's moving. It's a verb, right? It's constantly moving, being made. It allows us to take in this idea of being absolutely present, which is one of the hardest things in this entire practice, to be present. Atta Yoga Anushasanam. Now the exposition. It's always interesting to me how words are chosen in any book, how words are actually chosen. And I find that if you lay different translations of the sutras next to each other, they're going to be saying essentially the same things, yet in their way. So I love this one in particular and the way that the words have been chosen, this idea of exposition and the fact that we're making this story as we go. Iyengar goes as far as to beautifully say we are writing, reading, and revising all at the same time, which I believe is the absolute, absolute truth. We are in this story that's being told with every decision that we make, with every gross as well as subtle action. And so we're making it as it's happening. There's so much of our lives that we want to predict. And I think we all have these ideas, these grand ideas of what we feel we are going to be or what we're going to do or how long certain things are going to take. The truth is, we don't have that kind of control. We just don't have that kind of control. And I think the sooner we realize that we don't have this control, the better off we are. This requires so much surrender. Can I make this story as I go presently, but can I create this beautiful environment that I actually want to live in? Can I create a story that's allowing me to be me, that's allowing me to be happy, that's allowing me to be fulfilled and feel successful in a state of living in my own soulful purpose? Love this first sutra. It's said that the second sutra is the one to always, always remember, and I believe that's also true. But we have to start here. Now is where we begin our story. And I think this is really lovely in the aspect that maybe this was the moment we woke up. Maybe the moment we actually felt our yoga shift through us in a different way, the moment that our yoga found us, that moment that things began to change, the story began for us. Because we were no longer trying to steer a car that we don't have control of. So, what does that mean? There's so much surrender in our lives that has to be accepted, right? Because we do have these timelines and these expectations, great expectations, and these ideas of what we're supposed to be and when and who we're supposed to be and why. And then life throws you sideways, and maybe really sideways. And then you have to reevaluate what any of that means. The loss of my stepdad, Jim Cash, was the first time that I really felt present. And I was already in my yoga, but that type of loss makes you feel the world in a different way. When you wake up, and I believe there are so many different layers of being awake, when you wake up and you start to see the world and you start to feel things in a much deeper, subtler way, so surreal when the world is moving and you're sort of standing still and just observing what's happening without much control. There's this place of true acceptance in those moments of surrender where you realize I'm here and I have to be here to feel the depth of whatever this feeling may be. And that is what's going to allow me to be present. That is what's going to allow me to feel awake in my life. In the face of death, we awaken. I've had a lot of loss and a lot of different layers of being awake. I have had to mourn myself and the ideas of what I believed I was going to be, because before my cancer as a yogi, I believed there were a lot of things I was going to be that definitely did not involve having cancer. And yet here we are. So many layers to this story, so many chapters that get rewritten as we grow and become just wiser, more thoughtful human beings in the world. I want to continue to write a story that allows me to be in the truest space of me. And that doesn't mean I don't feel the world, and it doesn't mean I don't feel my marriage and my kids, and I do. And in fact, I feel that probably more than I did before. And maybe because of those layers of being awake, as we shed the expectation, as we shed the timelines, as we begin to recognize present moments, we also begin to realize how anxious we are and how much we worry about the people that we love or about ourselves or about our marriage. You know, I've had a lot of people recently talk about the troubles that they're having in their marriages, in their relationships. And you guys, relationships take constant work. My husband is my best friend in the entire world, and he drives me completely insane. We have our own podcast called Man, Child, and the Yogi, and that's why, because it's one of the ways that we've found to vent sort of what we need to get off our chest about each other without actually killing each other, right? That's a dramatic extreme, but without biting each other's heads off. I mean, relationships are constant work. And if you're doing the work to write, revise, and read your own story, that relationship, whatever it is that you're in, it's going to grow with you. And those pages have to change with you. A relationship can't stay the same as it was if you or your partner is changing. It doesn't work that way. If you are the one that's excelling spiritually and someone else is stagnant in their own space, it's not going to work. It's not going to last. I was in a marriage that was like this, and I was in that marriage for 21 years. And You have to realize that as one person is changing and the other one is not, or the other one is changing in a different direction, we have to be willing to change the idea of that story. I do not regret that marriage. I'm extremely grateful that it allowed me to find the marriage that I am in, with this love that I have with this amazing, ridiculous human being that uh, challenges me and tests me in the biggest ways. Now, the exposition of yoga is being made. The hardest place to be yogic, you guys, is at home. The hardest place to be yogic is to be with the people that you love the most, because they know you better than anybody else. And they know how to push all of your buttons, and your guards are down. As well, they should be. They're supposed to be, because these are your loves. My husband, my children, right? I am tested by these people more than anyone else, which is karmically as it should be. But if I stick with the old narrative, then we are not going to be able to grow, evolve, and excel as a family. And that's hard. It's hard as a mom. It's hard as a wife. It's hard for everyone, as a partner, as a lover, as a best friend, as a sibling. It's really difficult to be willing to be present enough to change the narrative. But it's the only way. And being present in your story means a level of surrender, which equals a level of acceptance that maybe you've not yet experienced. The yoga, our yoga, says, wake up so that you can actually live in the depth of your own story. Why would we not want to do that fully, completely? Live in the depth of your own story. But that means you've got to let go of the past. And that means past idea, past feelings. It's so easy in a relationship to hold on to the way that you used to feel when it was new, right? That honeymoon phase when everything's so sexy and so brilliant, and you're really deeply trying to please each other, almost to a point where you're not really living in or as your authentic self. When the bullshit comes down, you have to look at each other and go, do I still want this? And if the answer is yes, this is continuous growth and continuous evolution toward a story that you can absolutely create together. But you can't create a story that involves other people by yourself. I think, I don't think it's just women that do this, but I'm a woman, so I'm going to speak from that space. I think there's this place as householders where we feel like we have to do it all, right? We actually take on too much because we believe that it's our responsibility to take on too much. I feel that men do this constantly. And in fact, I feel that men are taught straight out of the womb to do this. You have to be the one that makes the money, and you have to be the one that has the job, and you have to be the one, be the one. Again, I call bullshit, because all of those uh, boxes are being pushed open constantly, especially now. But I feel that we do ourselves, our stories, a great disservice by this level of social expectation or familial expectation. There is no formula to being a family, to being in a relationship. There's no formula but the formula that you create together. And again, that means that story has to change together. It has to involve more than just you. You cannot take on the brunt of the responsibility for everyone that you love, know, and care about. It's impossible. None of us are that strong, even though we want to believe that we are. Those of you that have super person, superhuman complex, I beg you, I urge you to please begin to let that go and recognize that we all need each other, and that you've been put in that family for so many karmic reasons. They're yours and you're theirs. Good, bad, happy, sad. Let go of the labels, because there's so much karma in the mix of trying to create and live in a story that involves more than just you. And this is deeply yogic. It's coming out of that I mind. We are not living solely for our own existence. And if we are, that's asmita, that's all ego. Allow openness in the book that you're writing. Allow openness in knowing that you get to tear out pages and start over. You get to tear out pages and look at, for me, my new, beautiful, incredible person and feel so insanely blessed and yet so irritated most of the time. It's true, because this person does not allow me to get away with any of my regular patterning. But that's lovely, right? If we didn't have someone that challenged us, maybe it is our children, maybe it's our siblings, maybe it's our parents, what good is it? It's complacent. It's as if everyone's walking around invisible, not even paying attention. There's no movement in that. There's no rajas. It's lovely to feel challenged as much as it also irritates me. It's lovely to feel challenged and to know that we can bump into each other that way and also share this space of I'm going to challenge you equally. I'm going to meet you where we are together as a couple, my children as well, as a family, and say, this is good because from this place, we all get to grow. From this place, we all get to become something bigger and better and more beautiful and more us as a same unit, as a yogic family, right? And then that bleeds out into the people that you choose to be your chosen family, your friends, and those people, your sangha, those people that you choose to spend time with. Are you present in allowing that story to evolve as it truly needs to? I have a dog symphony going on behind me. And if you are willing to allow that story to be open and to allow it to shift and breathe and be, it's going to be much better. I've said this about the studios now, this Hilltop Yoga open 18 years, that if you build it, they will come. And I feel that's absolutely true. And I feel that's true emotionally and mentally and physically. If you allow a stepping into and an openness in ideas in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, it's going to unravel itself. But if we are stuck in expectation and in trying to steer a certain direction, the exposition is not being made then. You've decided and you've made it. What if it doesn't go that way? What if you refuse to rip out pages and start over? What if you refuse to read the pages that have created who you are because that's where you've come from? The denial of past creates a shutting down of present. Atta yoga anushasanam. Now. The exposition of yoga is being made now. My story begins with myself, with you, with my family, friends, my mother, my sisters, etc. Now the story begins because I've chosen to open my eyes and allow it to be something that is moving. I've allowed an acceptance of change that is constant. It's hard to welcome change. Change can be extremely frightening, and yet I've watched these pivotal moments of my life and of others' lives. And if we were not willing to welcome a shift in the story, we would be very, very stuck. I do not believe that I would actually still be alive. Yeah, there has to be this openness to accept and welcome and be willing to change the narrative so that your story can be present. All right, you guys, you're amazing. Know it. Atta Yoga Anushasanam right now, this moment, your story begins. Shanti.